Okay, well, if anybody's watching, welcome. This is the very first episode of Convos with Kirsten. I started this because Katie, my first guest, actually, and I were having a great conversation, and I was learning all about, how she got to where she is and how she got to what she's doing. And I realized I was having so many interesting conversations with people that I wanted to share them. And so, what better way to do that than to start a YouTube channel? Who knows? I really think there's so much power in hearing someone's experience and how every step along the way utilizes their strengths and their intuition and gets them to where they are. And just because they're at a place now doesn't mean they're not going to keep weaving and going. So, I'm really excited to talk to Katie Lantukh today. And Katie is the founder and a messaging strategist for her company, Murphy Marketing. Katie, welcome. Thank you so much for being game for whatever the hell this is.
Yes.
So excited to chat with you again. Tell me a little bit, just about your business and what you focus on, who you serve.
Yes. So we are a messaging studio that's really focused on helping businesses, solopreneurs, or even nonprofits kind of figure out what are we saying, like when we talk about our business. And so oftentimes that turns into website content. Sometimes that turns into email campaigns or even trying to develop that thought leadership on LinkedIn content as well. So really trying to figure out like, okay, given the story that we want to tell and the audience that we want to hear it, where do we need to show up and what pieces do we need in place to make sure that that's, consistent and hitting them where they are.
I absolutely love it because it's such a specific area of marketing. Marketing is such
Hmm.
a big umbrella. And
Yeah.
so I'm always fascinated by these like very specific jobs. And I absolutely love it. When you were like a little kid, what did you want to do? Who did you want to be?
Yeah, I wanted to be a writer. Like I
Really?
have this vivid memory of I was reading red fish, two fish, or one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish. And I was like, I don't know how I put together that like a person had written that book. And I was like, that's what I want to be. Like, that's it.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So for the longest time, I thought that being a writer meant that you had to be an author, or like if you can't do that, then you could be an English teacher. Like in my mind, those were the only options. And so I went to college thinking, okay, maybe I'll teach English, maybe I'll teach other subjects. And then I found the communication department with like journalism and video, and I was like, oh no, this is it. Like this is so fun because it's like creativity, but also like truth telling. And I think that's why I love marketing because that's the same thing. It's creative truth telling.
I love that. I never thought of it that way. I've always said like marketing is my weakest. Like I am not good at marketing. But now if I'm going to reframe it, be like, oh, I do love truth telling. So
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
like being creative. So now you're
Yes.
making it's easier for me to swallow, I think. Wait, but
Yeah.
that's really crazy that you knew from such a young age. Like I feel like that doesn't happen very often.
No, and no, and it's kind of funny because my dad is a doctor and my mom was like very involved with like nonprofits. She was a big volunteer in our community and I was like, "No, I want to be a writer." And my dad was like, "Oh no, you're not going to make any money." But they were very supportive, don't get me wrong. But I think when I kind of like funneled it down to like journalism, they were like, "Oh, there are jobs in that area. That's great."
Did you ever do like creative writing or was
Yes,
that
all the time.
do
Hmm.
you enjoy that also?
Yeah, I really do. I in like high school and college I did a lot of like short story writing, like short fiction stories, and I loved it so much and would like enter contests and like different things like that and it was so fun. And then I feel like I spend so much like creative juice at work that it's hard to be like, oh, and on the side I'm gonna write something. But I've started like several like book story ideas, and so one of them maybe I'll get back to someday.
That's awesome. Okay, please keep me updated on that. I'm
Yeah.
an avid reader, so
Yes.
I would read
Me too.
anything you wrote.
Oh, that's so kind.
So in college, when you kind of figured out like, oh, this is actually something I can do, was that it? Was that like, okay, now I have to figure out how to achieve this goal? Or were there like, did you have any weird jobs along the way?
Gosh, yes. It was an interesting time because I graduated in 2009, in December of 2009. And before that, I had this amazing internship at Fox News Channel in LA. And it was like a once in a lifetime opportunity, had incredible like things I got to do. Like, for example, that was the summer that Michael Jackson died. So I got to go with the satellite truck to his memorial service and I got to like camp out at his house and like watch the activity. Like it was
That's
unbelievable what I got to do.
crazy. Wait, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure he died on my birthday.
Really? Oh
Yeah,
my gosh, that's
it was
so
either on
wild.
my birthday or the day before because I have a very vivid memory of like hearing about it and
Where
being
were you?
like, but I'm like planning a party right now. So
Yes. Yeah.
wait, but that's so what? And
Yeah.
that's an experience. That was during an internship you got to
Yes,
do
that
that?
was my internship. And so I was like, I graduated and was like, well, this is in the bag, like, no problem. And at that time, Fox was like, they had a good reputation. People loved them. You could work at any of the like local stations because I had worked for the main, like the West office. And so I just was like really excited. But then come graduation, that's when all the newspapers were closing. Like every
Yeah.
news station, they were laying off everyone. Like people with decades of experience were just getting cut left and right because there was that transition to online news. And it feels so like antiquated to like explain this to people now because it's like they did not know how to monetize an online newspaper. Like no one knew. And so they were not hiring out of college kids. And so I had to work I mean, thankfully I did find work. I worked at a church and then I worked at a production house making like reality show TVs. And then I worked at a law firm after that because I thought I wanted to go to law school.
Oh,
And then I
wow.
like,
That's a
yeah, I
pivot, by the
worked,
way.
yeah, I worked like every imaginable industry I've like touched. And then I finally found my way to marketing and felt like, oh, okay, this is my jam. Like I appreciate, the journey that I learned all this stuff, but
Yeah.
I really felt myself like come alive in that setting where it's like we get to have the variety of clients, we get to meet a bunch of people and kind of articulate their story and help their business grow. And like that was so energizing to me. Um, so yeah, it was super fun.
I completely understand about that time period of like graduating from college during that time too, because also the recession hit
Yeah.
in like the end of '07. I graduated in December of '07. And
Ugh.
so I wanted to do visual arts. Like my goal was to do window displays and like
Mm,
there's no creative jobs when there's a recession, right? Like you can work
no.
for free to gain experience. And so
Right.
I totally remember like that whole time and feel that I can feel that feeling that you had. Like I know it well.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
understand.
And
It
it's
was
like it did not
scary.
it was and it did not matter how good my grades were. It did not matter my like all the other boxes that I had checked, like
Yeah.
thinking that it was going to yield this output
Well, that's what we were
that like
told.
didn't exist anymore.
Right? That's what we were told like our whole lives. Like, this is the path you take. Like, you
Yeah.
have to go to college. You absolutely need a degree. You need
Yes.
to do all these extracurriculars. You
Yes.
need internships
Yep.
because if you do all those things, you will graduate and immediately have a great job. And
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
it was like it that wasn't real by the
No.
time we got there.
Right.
So, like
Right.
I know so many people that are like around our age that have had to get real scrappy.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've all
Yes.
done some weird things. With the production company, any fun reality shows that you guys did?
Oh, so my main show was on DIY Network, and so they would do like home renovations.
Uh-huh. Oh my God, I used to love when I had cable. Is that still
Yeah,
a network?
I think so. I think
Okay.
we also don't watch TV anymore.
Yeah.
So it's kind of with kids, like it's either like Paw Patrol or nothing. So,
Right.
um, yeah, but it was really cool to see like from the pre-production, like the planning, once we had like the homeowner, we knew what room we were going to do because it was a show where we would come in and do like a one room like makeover, and there were elements of the room. So if we were doing a kitchen, for example,
Yeah.
they would have voting online where viewers would choose the cabinets, they would choose the flooring, they would choose, the elements of it, the appliances made or like the color. I can't remember all the details, but it would be revealed in each segment to the homeowner. So like behind the scenes, our interior designer was having to think like, okay, if they choose this, then we need this. And if they choose this, though, this needs to match. And it was like, it
Whoa.
was amazing to see her like think through everything. And then for like the production team to be thinking like, okay, like how are we going to shoot this? And where are we going to get their reaction? And like, I don't know. It was just, I loved seeing like the whole process start to finish. And then, in the end, of course, it's like it always comes together and it's maybe not exactly what the homeowner wanted because they did enter into this like, well, the people
I
will decide.
that is so risky. So
There were
not
only a
only
couple
have
times that people were like mad. They were
like
like,
but like okay, fine if you're on one of those shows like the professional comes in and does the whole thing, right? But like to have the public decide that,
and we would give them options, but it was still like,
I
I
don't
don't know. Like
trust.
some people have preferences, and like, I don't want a chartreuse room,
No.
but
Yeah,
you might get one.
and also like at home I'm voting, right? And I'm like, do I want to mess with this person with
Right,
my vote, right? Like, or do I want
right.
to really use what I think would look right? That
Yeah.
is so scary.
Yeah, yeah. But that was like my first experience kind of writing for the web because I was like writing the descriptions and I would like I don't know, make up little taglines and stuff for the different products and I don't know, it was really fun.
That is fun. Did you learn like so since it was during that like shift in time, did you when you went to college, did you learn like like it was right before
So,
that all, right? Like
yeah, so
cusp?
like in college we did take a web design class and but we learned everything in Dreamweaver and
Oh,
like no one uses that anymore.
right. Wow.
So
That's
it's like the
crazy.
technology changed, and I'm sure that's how it is now. Like, I don't I don't know how you would teach someone like marketing tools. Like I think you just have to teach them like the like fundamental concepts, and then you just learn everything else on the job as you go.
Yeah, because things change so
So
quickly.
fast. Yeah.
You probably would need to like know what to be looking for, right? Or
Yeah.
like how, like maybe like some sort of process that you could implement into anything.
Right. Right. Right.
That is really interesting to think about. Like, if we were to go back to school, right? Like for
Yeah.
a day, even, and learn the same exact stuff that we did when we went, how different would it be because of the just changing landscape?
That would be so, so crazy.
So wait, your business now, how did you get to starting your own business?
Um, so I was working in-house at a software company. I was like their part of their small marketing team, and I had a baby. I like left for maternity leave, and um this is so embarrassing, but it's real. So I like did the math while I was on maternity leave, like, okay, if I check her into the daycare that's next door and I go back to my paycheck, I'm gonna make $100 a week.
That
What?
is not embarrassing, Katie, because it is a very real thing that happens to so many people, primarily women. I
Yeah.
have seen that in when I was working like in-house in HR.
Yeah.
So many women would leave after maternity leave for that reason and that reason only.
It's like I can't afford, like, why would
Yeah.
I do that?
Yep.
Like, for
Childcare
the,
is insane.
yes. And it's so unfortunate because it's like, it's just those first 3 years
Yeah.
that it's so unsustainable, but it's like there's no alternative. So I quit while I was on maternity leave
Mhm.
and I, kind of took about a year with my daughter and just, did the stay-at-home mom life. But I was kind of like, I always say that I was like itchy. Like I wanted to do
Yeah.
something. I love accomplishing things. I love making things. I needed to be doing something because I was quickly wrapping my identity in her and like her milestones and like what the doctors say and like, is she growing? And it's like, oh my gosh, that's insane. Like, that is not the measure of my success. And so I started, I'll never forget, I was talking to my husband. I was like, okay, I'm going to make an Etsy store and I'm going to make, well, first I'm going to learn to knit and then I'm going to make these knitted goods. And he was like, maybe we should do what we already know how to do. And I was like, okay.
I
So
love
that's
that you were
literally how
gonna
it started.
learn. I love that your plan was like, I'm gonna learn an entirely new thing
Yes.
and spend all of my time doing it.
Yeah,
Knitting
but my
takes
husband was like,
forever.
yeah, it takes forever. He was like, so like, how long does it take to make a scarf? Like something easy. And I was like, oh gosh, like at least several days. And he was like, and how much are you gonna sell this scarf for? And I was like, oh,
No, that really makes me happy. You were like, this is what I'm doing.
yeah. I was like, this is a great plan. Like I could do it. And my daughter's at home. And he was like, oh.
Did you ever learn to knit?
I mean, I knew loosely how to knit
Okay.
before, so it wasn't like a totally new, but I could
Okay.
make like scarves and fingerless gloves. Like that was my,
Okay. You're one up on, I know how to make a scarf, and that is it.
that is it. I had one pattern of fingerless gloves that I could rock, but
Okay.
not a lot to build a business around.
I had to stop knitting because I have cats. I've always had cats.
Mm,
You can't do anything with
no,
string. Like I know
no.
that's such like a basic trope about cats, but it's a very real thing. One of my cats used to watch me and salivate. Like drool would drip out of his mouth while watching me knit, and like it just wasn't worth it. I would get
That's so
scratched all the
funny.
time.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
So you realize knitting, no, your husband was like, let's focus on what we're good at.
Yeah, yeah. And so then I was like, okay, I guess you're right. And so I started just like telling my friends, and I think I posted on my like very personal Instagram, like it's literally baby photos, that I was freelancing, that I was available for literally whatever they wanted. So I had like a few friends, a few like former, people from past lives that I knew, and they were like, "Oh, can you do my social media?" Because that's what I did at the agency. I did a lot of social media. They're like, "Oh, can you like help us get started?" I was like, "Yeah, I can do that." And then someone else is like, "Oh, I'm starting a home remodeling business. Can you make me an ad?" And I was like, "Sure, like I can do that." And so it just started by saying yes to everything. And then over now 8 years, I've been able to refine down like what I'm actually good at and want to do and can actually make a difference in people's businesses. Because that's the other thing that I found that I care so much about is that like marketing should like make a difference in your sales. And a
Yeah.
lot of marketing is just checking off boxes. We're going to post 3 times a week and we're going to send the email. But then we never think about, is that what our audience needs? And is that like moving the needle for sales? And if
Yeah.
not, like, let's change it.
I'm guilty of that. I'm not gonna lie. I admitted to
Yeah.
someone yesterday, I was like, oh, I don't look at my like LinkedIn analytics ever. Meanwhile, I post like hundreds of times. I'm like, I should
Yeah. Yeah.
probably check those out at some point. I have a calendar invite for
Maybe.
myself to do that.
There you go.
How long did it take you? First of all, congratulations. 8 years is a very long time to have your own, like
Yes.
a small business. That
It
is
is.
absolutely incredible. When did you, within that time, figure out like what you wanted to kind of like hone in on?
Um, I would say I had a hunch pretty early on that I wanted to not do social media, that I wanted to be more focused on websites. And then maybe 2 years in, I decided to get this certification in story brand. It's like a narrative framework that you can apply to businesses. And before that, I had been like way overcomplicating brand messaging. I was like trying to give businesses like an Enneagram test, or like I was like really overthinking it. And so when I went through story brand, I was like, oh my gosh, brand messaging, that's what I want to do. Like that's what I love. And so with their framework, I was kind of like figuring out like, okay, how does this work? How does it work for businesses? Like, what are those puzzle pieces? And then I feel like following that framework as well made me really good at websites. Like it really like gave me good lines to color within of like,
That's
okay,
awesome.
these are the elements that you need, then these are how you can break the rules. But like knowing the structure and how it should work is exceptionally helpful. Because before it's like, well, I think I would want to read this first and then this second. It's like all guts and I don't know, like no data.
Well, like you have to have both, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Exactly.
awesome. And so you just like narrowed in on that then. Like you had that hunch, you realized what you didn't like to do. Sometimes I find it's easier to identify what you don't like to do than it
Yeah.
is what you like absolutely want to do.
Right. Well, and it feels like such a risk. Like I still kept selling social because that's what I was known for so long until I had my second kid and needed to take my own maternity leave and was like, I can't crank out 20
Yeah.
posts a month like while my brain is fried. So I like batched probably 3 or 4 months for all my clients and was like, y'all are set. I'll call you when I'm back. And then in that interim time, like they had like hired someone else or they kind of like filled those gaps. So they didn't actually need me. And then everyone else who asked me for that once my son was born, I was like, oh, I don't do that anymore. Like, please talk to my
Wow.
friend.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So
How lo-
it was a good phase
how long
out,
ago
but
was that?
that was in 2019.
Okay,
So
so that's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Good for you. And so it took a few years, right?
It did. Yeah.
Of like kind of testing things out. And I think that like for something I've only been in business a little over 2.5 years at this point, like in my
Hmm.
independent career.
Yeah.
Um, but it's constantly pivoting and like
Yeah.
finding out what works, what doesn't, what you like, what you don't like. And like
Hmm.
I am always really inspired by people that have kind of like figured out I really like to do this specific thing,
Yeah.
and that is what I'm going to do. So
Hmm.
you're
Hmm.
encouraging me to kind of like
Yeah.
start
Yeah.
to narrow it down a little. Something that I thought was really interesting that we had talked about last time
Hmm.
too was not just external messaging,
Yeah.
but how important internal messaging is also. And so,
Yes.
like, I've been in HR for like 14 years, and it makes a big difference. Like I have
Hmm.
noticed, right? Like HR is usually, especially in like a larger corporation, HR is sending out a lot of messages, right? But even in small businesses, leadership is usually the ones doing that. And,
Hmm.
the tone, the clarity, any action items, like it's a science putting
Yeah.
those communications together. Um, any tips for people messaging like for leaders, let's say, like any
Yeah.
tips for internal messaging?
Yeah. So I would kind of apply the same process to like the internal messaging where you're thinking about like what are the core values of either the leader themselves or of the business, and then how is that going to inform like what we say and how we say it. And so I think when you have that as your thread throughout, it really helps bring so much clarity to like how you're saying things and even how often or where. Like, is it a Slack or is it an email? Is it a memo on a piece of paper? Like, all those things can be filtered through that value, and that like gives you the answers. So if connection, for example, is the core value, maybe it needs to be a meeting and not an email.
I love that. Yeah, that's
So
absolutely right. Like the method is just as important as the message.
yeah, yeah.
Ooh. I love that. That's really cool. Do you ever have days where you're kind of like, what am I doing? How did I get myself? I'm asking business owner to business owner.
Gosh, yes. There's always this like moment I feel like in every season, like last summer when everyone was like hot and heavy on ChatGPT, I had several leads that were like, "Oh, I don't need you. I'm gonna just ChatGPT this." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then the funny thing is like maybe 6 weeks later, one lady came back to me and she was like, "That was trash. Like, I really do need you."
It's a
So
good tool, but
it is. It
you
doesn't
need a
replace.
human expert
Yes.
to yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I use ChatGPT all the time, but like it's not writing everything for me. It's not replacing me. It's like just speeding things up.
Totally.
Yeah. Um, but I mean, even now, like with this, like kind of the tariffs hit, and I lost a few clients because their clients were like getting products from
Oh,
China, and they were like, "Well, I can't do this," and then it just like set off a chain reaction. Other people are like, they're nervous. They're like, "Well,
yeah.
my cash flow, I'm not sure." And marketing's always the first to get cut, and so it's like, okay, but without marketing, like a B2B sales cycle is about 18 months. So if you have time, that's
Well,
fine.
it's interesting because like marketing in my mind is like second in like sales is obviously like if you have
Yeah.
people working in sales, that's directly tied to revenue. But I would think
Yes.
marketing would be second.
Right. Because the salespeople need people to work. Like
Right. Right.
we need people
Absolutely.
in the door. Yeah.
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 I've heard from a lot of fellow business owners over like it was probably from like March of last year and still kind of happening that people were having a hard time. Like I think that there's just a lot of fear
Yeah.
around money and resources and a lot of people are just like sitting and like waiting
Yes.
for the economy to get better, for everything to kind of, but that's putting just everybody in a weird position. And I've heard it from so
Yeah.
many different industries too, like service providers, you know, retail shops, like everywhere.
Mm, yeah,
It's
I
really
believe
wild out
that.
there.
It really is. It really is. But I think even though like there's ups and downs, and I feel like my business survived COVID, it survived having a baby. Like, I think that my takeaway is to just like stay the course
Yeah.
and like don't adjust everything at the same time. If there are things that I want to experiment with or try, then I'm not going to change like everything at the same time because it's so tempting to be like, oh, this isn't working, like light a match to it and
Yeah.
just start over. But I have to remind myself that there are things that are working. And maybe it's not exactly the same combination that was working 8 months ago, but that's okay because there are pieces that are still moving.
That is great advice. Don't burn it all down.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yes. I mean, and that's coming from a girl who went to a workshop and then deleted the website that she had because she didn't like it anymore after learning. Like, don't do that.
Like this is trash, delete.
Yeah, I was like, I can't live with this one more day, delete. And then I was like, oh no, now I need to spend all weekend remaking my website.
Listen, we learn from our mistakes
That's
and then
right.
we share the advice, right? So thank
That's
you for
right.
sharing that. If you could tell anyone who's like interested in marketing or likes marketing just as a whole, like any
Mhm.
advice for kind of like figuring out where their strengths are or where their niche may be?
Yes, I think there's such a cool shift happening in the like fractional marketing person space. And it's really moving towards this specialization that, yeah, you can know generally about like SEO and ads and social and web and all those things. But I don't think people expect you to be a specialist in all of it anymore. Like it feels
Mhm.
like that was true maybe 10 years ago. But now I think at least people have either like an appetite or just an expectation that it's like, okay, wait, I really need an SEO expert on this. Or man, we need to call my Google Ads friend because I don't know. Like, I know we need it, but I don't know the details or what the ad spend should be. And so I feel so like one of my core values is collaboration. And so I love creating a team that like is going to hit all those pieces that we need to support the strategy that we've designed. And so it's like it's a really cool cohesion where you don't have to be everything to
Mhm.
everyone. And like there are people who are going to be so like mathematically minded. And I need those people because I am not that. And so like you don't have to be something you're not if you're trying to get into marketing, I think is what I'm trying to say.
That is such good advice, really, because I know that, like, even for myself, like, I'm an HR generalist at heart, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm doing that same thing where I'm like touching every piece of HR, but like, it's exhausting sometimes,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so I'm actually going through that process right now of like self exploration where I'm like, what are the two, like, top two, let's say, things that
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I really can be the absolute expert in. But
Yeah.
sometimes it's hard to figure that out too, especially
Yeah.
if you're interested in a lot of
Yeah.
different things.
Yes, 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 yes. I totally hear that. And I mean maybe it's different for HR. Like
I bet
I
it
don't
is.
know.
It probably is.
Yeah.
Um, well, Katie, I don't want to keep you for too long, but I want to just talk a little bit about like who your ideal client is, who like when people should reach out to you, what kind
Yes.
of things you have coming down the pipeline. Like tell me everything.
Yeah. So I love working with people on like the heart level. They feel kind of gross about marketing. Like it feels like a necessary evil. It feels like, oh, I guess we have to do this if we want sales. Like it feels like a slog.
Hmm.
And I love to help them see that like we can take like their preferences and who they are and like bring that to life in marketing that they're actually proud of. So like they're excited to tell their neighbor, so what do you do? Like
Yeah.
to answer that question like around the barbecue this summer, like to really make it feel like them and so they don't feel like they're being salesy. Like that's my ultimate dream is to help everyone just feel like comfy and excited about like what they're doing because what they're doing like really matters.
Yeah.
Um
I love that because it's really gross to feel like you have to sell yourself, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. Well, and so many times when I'm like, I don't actually have a good answer like in my back pocket for that. So then I'm like, I'm in marketing, and they're like, okay, cool. Like, no further questions. But if I say like, something more inviting, then that invites a conversation, and they're more likely to be like, oh my goodness, my brother-in-law is having that exact problem. Like, you two should talk. Like, that's how business grows. It's not by like, I'm a,
Buy from me.
Yeah, no, like no one wants that.
No.
Um, so then like the industry piece of that, like it's a lot of consultants, it's a lot of coaches. I think the other interesting element is that those are very competitive and it's hard to stand out. So when we can pull like who that person is out more, then they stand out on their own and they're like basically being a magnet to their ideal people because they're like, oh, I would love to work with that person. Like we're really vibing or whatever. So
Yeah. Awesome. And what kind of services like are you offering that
yeah,
you plug away?
plug away. So we start with a brand vision and strategy session to really figure out like what are we doing? Who are we talking to? Like what's worked in the past? What hasn't worked? Like give me a lay of the land so that we can like find the little pockets of flames and fan those. Because I don't want to just throw everything out and burn it all down and like start from scratch. Like there's probably things that should be preserved. And so then trying to like strategize like, okay, for the next 12 months, like how are we going to get you to your goals? Like what are we going to do from a marketing perspective? What does sales need to like help them do better? And what do they need scripts or new emails or whatever? Um, and then the other layer of that is also like, okay, how are you going to like empower your internal team to like be excited about this too, so that you're not having to be like, okay, did you share this on LinkedIn? But like there's a genuine like excitement and enthusiasm for what the whole company is doing. So I think that is like my favorite place to start because it just gives us like such a clear path forward.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then oftentimes we're, either adjusting pieces of the website or maybe they want like a full redo and we're just totally reimagining the website. And then once the like kind of foundational pieces are set, then we're doing like ongoing content, meaning blogs, emails, social, like LinkedIn primarily, because most of my people are like B2B or service providers.
Hmm.
Um, but if they need Facebook and Instagram, then I have my friend that they can call that will loop in.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that is in a nutshell what we do.
Awesome. And where can people find you?
Yes, I spend most of my social media time on LinkedIn.
Okay.
So my name is as it is listed here, and I think I'm the only one. So
Yes.
and then I also send a weekly, I call it the quick question of the week email. It comes
Ooh.
out most Mondays and it's like a little thought nugget of like ways to improve your messaging, just a little tiny bit. Because sometimes it's overwhelming for business owners to be like, oh, now we have to like do all of this. But it's like, no, we can just ask one quick question and make it a little bit better.
I love that. Can we sign up on your website? Is that
Yes.
where? Okay, so
Yes.
I'll make
Yes.
sure to put the link
Okay.
under all of this. And
Perfect.
I need to sign up myself. I'm going to make a
Yeah.
note of that.
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. Well, Katie, thank you for being
Thank you.
so game to talk to me in this space, whatever this may be. You have been so lovely, and I really hope that everyone reaches out to you because I think what you're doing is so cool. And I also hope that little Katie is very proud of
Oh,
you and where you are now because you're doing what your dream was, which is
yeah.
crazy. So,
Hmm.
congratulations to you.
Oh, thank you. That's really sweet. I like that.
No problem. All right, Katie. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.